I realize that I have had trials, and my children always die. They always died. I have lost 3 children, but not even that has caused me to stop listening to God's word. I'll never stop listening to his word.
Feeding on the husks around me, till my strength was almost gone. Longed my soul for something better, only still to hunger on.
You're listening to Singing Their Song.
Hi, I'm Maxine.
And I'm Rebecca. We're glad you joined us. How are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. I've had one company after another the whole week.
Oh, good.
Yesterday was the first day that I was alone, and all of a sudden I crumbled and I slept and I rested. And
I can imagine.
when my niece was staying with me, so she wanted to go here and wanted to go there.
Aww.
One of these days they're going to have to realize I'm in my 90s.
Well, it doesn't help that you don't act like you're in your 90s, so. Did you have a good birthday and everything too? And
I did. Really nice birthday and people celebrating. And I still have one more celebration coming up the 22nd.
Okay.
Because there's this group of ladies that we've been friends a long time, and we celebrate each other's birthdays. Well, it's getting more and more complicated to find a day that suits all of us.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I have one more birthday thing coming up.
Very good. I get to celebrate tonight. Tyler's taking me out to celebrate our anniversary.
Is today your anniversary?
Today is not. It was on Thursday, but we were both working, so we are celebrating today.
How many years?
16.
16. My anniversary was the 30th.
Oh.
And that was would have been 73 years.
Wow.
And I mentioned that to a friend of mine, and she says, okay, we're going to celebrate. So we got together with another friend that used to go to jail with me. Mm-hmm. These 2 were my jailbird friends, nice. Like you. Yep. And we had the best day together. Mm. Yeah.
I love it. Mm.
Yeah.
Well, last time we met, we started where we wanted to talk about some of the Ayore heroes. And we talked about our first one last time. Starts with a D.
Was it
Epidsode? Epidsode, yeah. Mm-hmm. I kept wanting to say Betitade, and I thought, nope, that's God. And he also helped you.
Betitade helped us both.
Ayore is who we talked about last time. But I remember you telling me about a young woman as well that helped you.
And that's something you're saying that about the women, because that's what God, this morning when I was contemplating who to share with about, mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, how I don't want to just talk about the men that did great big things that are showy things like preaching and although that's wonderful, and mm-hmm. also they're helping me with translation, all these things. But I thought today I would like to share about Tetnunye. Okay. And her name means the cold one. Mm. Tetnu means cold. And if you put gay on it, it's a woman that's cold. Or a thing that is feminine, thing that is cold. Mm. But her name was Tetnunye. And, Tetnunye she would bring herself to meetings, my ladies' meetings and things, but she never had anything to say, and she never prayed. There were some that are more outgoing and some are very reserved, and mm-hmm. She was one of the reserved ones. And so I'm going to walk into my study.
Okay.
And so I wanted to read how God finally gave her voice. And I have her testimony.
Oh, wonderful.
And, it was really something when we were there in the tribe. We were doing the pioneering.
Mm-hmm.
And we never got to see a lot of the fruit of our own ministry. We saw some in 20 years, but it was pioneering work where we were willing to do whatever, keep them alive. They were so susceptible to every illness and then a lot of resistance to the gospel and resistance to, they might accept Christ, but then they'd say, I can't do that. I'm an Ayore. Ayores do not do that, or Ayores do this. And let's see, Tenunye, where are you? Betitade. She lost her name, Tenunye, because once you have a child, you go by that child's name.
Oh, interesting.
Like she was Tenunye, but they had a little baby named Betty. And so she became Betitade. Date is mother of. And her husband became Betitade, father of. And even the grandparents, Betitade, the grandma of. Like
now,
that.
What happens if they have more than one child?
It would depend on many things. Maybe they'd like, I don't know why they would go to the other child or keep that name, but it was really hard keeping records.
I bet.
I had this file box where I thought I need to keep what injections I've given them and what things and what illnesses they've had and when their baby was born and this and that. But it was so difficult because their names changed always.
That would make a challenging task.
What to do? But anyway, Betitade, who is Tenunye, was the sweetest, kindest, quietest lady. And what I remember, this is before this testimony, was after I moved to Cochabamba, and the missionary that came in after us challenged the ladies to tell me their testimonies. And so I got all these texts from these wonderful ladies telling me their testimonies, and woohoo! It was wonderful because I did their initial teaching in Our Ladies meetings, but I'll tell you, those were wild meetings. I think I've told you how they would get mad at each other there, or they would bawl each other out in the middle of it. But they had real meetings later on. I'll tell you first about when her baby was born. I was called down in the morning to help because of this baby was being born. And so she just couldn't have it, and she couldn't have it, and she couldn't have it. And Howard finally came down and he says, what's going on? And I said, I don't know. She just can't have the baby. And I went home and ate, and I went back again. And so it was night by this time, and Howard came back and he said, well, let's get her out of this hot, windowless house that they lived in, and let's get her out in the air, and maybe the walking will bring the baby. So we walked outside the hut, and he went in, got her blanket and brought it out, and then she sat down outside, and we put the blanket over her, and that did it.
Oh.
And the baby was born, but I had the blanket all covering her.
Mm-hmm.
And Howard said, I said, Howard, it looks like a frozen chicken or a frozen turkey.
Nope.
He says, Maxine, it's probably in the uh, birth waters, and they haven't ruptured. He said that baby will, now that it's born, it will die if you don't get that water off of him. So don't let her know what you're doing. Because if we'd let her know how it was born, she would have buried it. Because
there was something wrong.
Because it was wrong. So I pierced it with the scissors I used for and scooted it all off of the baby and held the baby up underneath the blanket. And that little baby took its breath and cried. And she never knew that the baby was born that way. Okay, this is Betitade, Nunge's testimony. Now I got to put my computer glasses on again so I can read it. I'm going to add my words. My words are for Marina. That's what they called me. That is why I'm putting them here, my words on the recorder here in God's house. It was a long time ago that I was baptized. When I was a young girl, they threw me into the water. I have never yet told on the recorder about when they baptized me. But I know that I believed in God, and now I'm putting my words on the recorder here in God's house. It's been a long time ago that I believed in Jesus when I was a young girl and when they baptized me as a young girl. But now I'm very short in my older age. But I only want to tell you that I have never believed in anything else. Only in God have I trusted. I know that I believe in God's Son also, and I want to record this so that Marina can hear what I say here in God's house. I realize that I have had trials, and my children always die. They always died. I have lost 3 children, but not even that has caused me to stop listening to God's word. I'll never stop listening to his word because I am a believer and I have been baptized. And I also know that I'm sure of my relationship with God. People are always recording their words, but I never have until now put my words on the machine here in God's house. Right now I'm putting them on the machine. I am sure of my faith, and that is why I'm doing it. I'm always telling myself this. Why is it I never have told about my faith? Why is it I've never put it on the recorder? It's so very long ago that they put my face under the water. Louis baptized me, and that was one of our missionaries. Louis baptized me, and now I can say that it's also been a long, long time that I have been praying to God. When I go to church, I've been laughed at, but I don't pay attention to the laughter. When you laugh at me, I just don't listen to you. As if you are my respected leaders, you who laugh when I pray. Go ahead and laugh at me when I pray, for God alone hears me, and God alone is the one I pray to and talk to. I ignore those who laugh at me. It's also been a long time that I have suffered headaches, but I ignore the pain. Satan wants to use the pain to make me stop following God, but I won't stop. I tell myself, Satan is giving me this pain because he wants me to leave God. Satan wants me, and he can't get into me. I say this because he wants me to stop serving God, that he gives me trials. Well, I do not want anything to happen. I will not stop. I was crippled a while back and I couldn't walk, but that didn't make me want to give up on God. I had to crawl on the ground to get around. Nothing would help me. Only God could help me. That was another trial Satan brought my way to make me stop following God. But I didn't stop at all. Only God is there for me, and only God hears me, and only God helps me, and I'm getting to know him better because of my trials. And so I do not forget when I was baptized to show that I believed. Since then, I have continued following Jesus. The only thing is, I sometimes have not been well enough to go to God's house for meetings and have had to stay home, but that's the way it is. I think that God can be compared to a child's friend that goes with him wherever he goes, the two children together. And when I'm here or not, he is with me. And this God of ours that we have never seen, he's our Father as well as our friend. I'm happy when they ring the bell for church, whether I can go or not. I'm happy when they ring the bell for church. And it's like the kind of happiness that we felt when we were little children and ran about the village with our friends. I look forward to them ringing the bell. I'm about to start doing something, but when I hear the bell, I say to myself, I can do this later. And I start off for church. I stop what I'm doing and I take off for God's house. It's because I've been happily looking forward to it. I'm like a child getting together with my friends. That's how happy we are to be going to church. This is all my words. I will stop now. I was glad when they said to me, let us go into the house of the Lord.
What an amazing woman. That's like, got me. Wow. Wow.
Well, you can imagine what I felt like for some of those professions. In the early days, I would think to myself, did they have enough knowledge? Did they have enough truth? Were they real? Were they following the crowd? And then to get a testimony like this, it's really beautiful.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, just because hearing, not on, like through her losses and all of that, and I like it. Actually, her testimony kind of reminded me of like a Johnny Erickson Tada kind of testimony, where it's like going through so much trial only to like grow stronger in faith.
Like she mentioned that.
Yeah.
I know God better now because of my trials.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this, I never dreamed that such words would come from their mouths.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, and I never thought of her as a deep, deep Christian. I respected her as a wonderful lady and a very, very kind and very calm. Never saw her mad, which is unusual among the Ayore ladies.
They like their anger. Yeah.
Yeah, like the one lady told me, she says, oh, I love my anger. She said, feels so good when it comes out. But yeah, just
And how
and all.
wonderful too for you guys, because so often I feel like when we're called to go out or to share our faith, we don't get to see anything come to fruition, right? Like it's just we plant the seeds and that's okay. But how awesome that you guys got to see those glimpses
Oh,
of them coming to faith.
yeah, and now when we were trying to talk them into not going to war against the people in up in Paraguay, that was a great big thing going on in those years that we were with them.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're getting together for Bible conferences.
Mm.
And when the faith in the church in Bolivia was growing kind of low after the missionaries had all left the camps and they were trying to get by on their own and they were getting weaker in their faith, in Paraguay they sent down evangelists to wake them up spiritually. And now they minister to each other. So yeah, to me a testimony like this is just, I read a song that I sang the other day from a hymn book, had a line in it that said, I will share my faith. I mean, this isn't exactly what it said, but it's what I took from it. Mm-hmm. I will share my faith and leave the results to my God. Mm. And that's what you were just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, it's not it's the Spirit who saves, and that keeps us from being boastful, right? Is that like all we can do is share.
And whether we see or not see. Mm-hmm. He never said go into all the world and persuade people to be Christians. He said give them the gospel. Mm-hmm. Just give them the gospel. Yeah. The simple, powerful gospel. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love her story. Did she just have, so she had 3 babies? Was that before you guys came? That she had the 3?
No, that was all during the time that we were there. Okay. Yeah, and they all died.
Wow. Yeah. Even the one that you had delivered?
Yes. Wow. Eventually, I think I don't remember. She grew up a little bit. She was a child when she died. Wow. She wasn't a tiny baby. Mm. Of course, this isn't counting the ones she buried.
Sure. Yeah.
They don't count them as children, if they bury them. And during our days there, that was going on too. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, later, none of it.
So how long did that take? So, because you guys got there and you were there 20 years.
We lived with them in their village 20 years. Mm-hmm. And I didn't start translating until I'd been with them 15 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And because it was breaking down the language, getting the idioms, learning their culture, all of that. When you have a zero society that nothing is available to you to study them. Mm-hmm. You discover everything. It's not like going into a known language. Mm-hmm. When you go into a place where they're warlike, where they have no written, they have no concept even of a written word. Mm-hmm. And so, like I say, our work was pioneering. Okay. We did see a church started. We did have Ekarai preaching and others of the men preaching. Mm-hmm. And I had plenty of helpers to come up to Cochabamba to help me finish it all. But, but those years were pioneer.
So would it, like, how long did you start seeing changes by the end of your 20 years, or did most of it change after?
Oh, yes. Many, many, many changes. But right along, we saw some changes, and few people really, we were hopeful they would have, go on. We saw some who rose quickly and fell quickly. And, just like in a sample of wherever you go with the gospel, that kind of a thing, and the trials. But by the time we left, we had literacy beginning and going and very few women. That was the hardest thing, is getting the women to read and write. But now there are women who read and write. And
Was that just a cultural thing as well? And like the women just don't do that kind of thing?
Well, the men are more free
to
do that. The women have the heavy duty jobs like getting the wood, keeping the fire going, weaving and having the babies and caring for the children. They just don't have the time to sit and learn. One of the ladies I did see become literate, she was the sweetest thing, but she would come up to the house. And I had learned about teaching people just by syllables, not by reading books. And so she learned all those syllables. But it was horrible when she wrote me letters after I moved to Cochabamba. It was just pure syllables. And I didn't, or one word started and the other one left off.
Oh my, yeah.
Because she had no concept of a word, just the syllables.
Oh, I wonder what she thought she was writing.
So I decided after she learned quickly all the syllables, and she could write her thoughts very well. But I'd have to study that and put lines where I thought words would go. And so it was after I got to Cochabamba that the finalized primers were written. And I did that from up in Cochabamba too, and sent them out.
Okay. So on that timeline, I know that there were times that trying to place it, because I know that there were times that you found yourself in Colombia and other...
Later.
That was later. Okay.
It was after we had furlough years during those 20 years. I think we had two furloughs. Yeah,
was that the same trip in which the woman mourned with you and then wanted some clothes?
No, that way down the line when we were doing Old Testament over in Paraguay.
Okay, that was a different trip. So in the Ayore,
in those 20 years, the only book I got translated, my first book was that. Which was dumb. I should have started like everybody does with Mark, but I was in love with the Book of Acts, and so I decided to do Acts.
That's fair.
Any missionary translator that I helped later on, if they'd said that, I'd say no, don't start with Acts. There's nothing to relate to. It's a hard book, but I did. That was the only one that I accomplished. As a new all believer. The rest of the New Testament was done after, during the 12 years after we went up to Cochabamba.
Okay. Yeah. And I could see as a new believer, Acts not meaning too much, but I remember taking a class when I was in college where we read the book. It was called Acts and Pauline Literature. And so we read Acts. And while we were reading it, we were consecutively reading Paul's letters when they would have happened along this storyline. And it was mind-blowing to put them actually in the right place. So it would be like, read this part of Acts, now read this letter, now read this part of it. So you can actually see what's going on in his world as he's writing these letters. It's really interesting.
But it was one of the hardest books for the Ayore to follow. They had no background for it.
That's true.
So it wasn't a good book to start with at all. And they used to quote so much from Jesus's teachings and from Paul's teachings, but they would say about Acts, that's just about the old timers.
Oh. Yeah.
But
They're not
now,
wrong.
yeah, that now there's a wonderful thing happening now. You know, most of the Old Testament is translated, but all of the book of Daniel, all of the book of Malachi, all of the book of Jonah, and just portions of the other prophet books. But now, the missionary in Paraguay is teaching a group of young men who want to finish every book.
Wow.
And so our Bibles right now are beautiful, and we thought that was enough, 17 books of the Old Testament and portions of the others and all of the New Testament. But no, they want the whole thing. So the missionary there's teaching them to translate.
Wow.
Isn't that marvelous?
That is, yeah. That's a big undertaking.
So she will be there to be their checker, to check on their translations for accuracy and all. Wow. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
No, without the pioneering, none of the other would have happened, And you go back farther than that, none of the men who tried to reach them in the jungle, with the gift trees and things like that, without them, we couldn't have pioneered. And without the pioneers, the church wouldn't be so strong. And now, and it's just how God does, Yeah. But I thought you'd like to hear about Tenunye.
Yeah. Do you know whatever happened to her?
She has since died, yes. And I don't know the story of everybody's deaths because we were not living there at the time, and then of course we based out of Inglewood, for so many years and traveled to other countries and all. But all of our travel into other countries, all of our Old Testament work was after we were in Inglewood.
Okay.
And we traveled from there, here, there, and everywhere.
So how did you know when it was time to move away? And I imagine that was pretty hard to do after 20 years of living with them.
Well, it was really interesting. Howard was changing even way back then. We had no idea it was pre-Alzheimer's. But it was in the early 80s that we came home. And it was in the early 90s that it was showing itself really big. And for some reason, we didn't even know up till about a month before we came home on furlough that we were coming for good. But all of a sudden, that just seemed to make sense to us. And Howie would say to us, because he'd see the change in his dad, and he'd say, Mom, I think you and Dad came home way too soon. He doesn't have his same, he's not Dad. And he saw that way back. He said he doesn't have any initiative. But he couldn't. He was fighting to keep things straight, but he was wonderful companion to me on all of my trips overseas and everything. And people used to say how very humble he was. People would comment on it. You'd never know he was a leader in Bolivia because it says he's washing dishes while Maxine's working, or whatever. And like when I was in Paraguay doing Ayore translation of the Old Testament, then he did all my typing.
Wow.
I did it all by hand. And then he'd come in as soon as he finished and take from me and keep it typed up in triplicate so we could give it out to people to read and try it and everything. And that everybody was amazed at the humility of the man, myself included.
Well, I was going to say, that's kind of a beautiful picture of what it is to be like truly a partnership too. To have those moments where you kind of help each other.
Yeah.
And step in where help is needed, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
You can celebrate each other.
He used to write our prayer letters, and he would say, Maxine did this, Maxine did that, and all. And I'd say, Howard, stop that. We did this, and we did that, because you're very much a part of this. Maybe you're typing, or maybe you're just freeing me, but that's still a part. And so then he started writing, we're happy we've started on this, or we're about to go here and all. But no, he showed a lot of humility, and never once said, I'm confused. Never once mentioned anything like that. And the first that we ever had really was he went into a deep depression, a horrible deep depression. And it was agitated depression where he couldn't sit still. And they sent us to a psychiatrist, and because he walked day and night around the house and get up, and then he could never go to sleep. And it was brought on, they said, by Reglan. It's a medication that you take, and it's supposed to make your digestive system open up better. And he was allergic to it. So then the psychiatrist we went to see, he said, because Howard couldn't even sit in the chair and talk to him. He was up walking around his office. And he said, give me a list of his medications. And as soon as I said Reglan, he says, oh, that's it. Take him off of that. He can quit that cold turkey. Take him right off of that. Well, then we thought he lost like 50 pounds or something during that time. And so we took him off of that, and he improved in that agitation and all. But it was also combined in blanketing the Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Hallelujah, I have found him, whom my soul so long has craved. Jesus satisfies my longing, through his blood I now am saved.
If you want more information about our time in Bolivia, go to ayore.org. That is spelled AYORE.org.